Does Tevin Coleman look more explosive now than a couple of years ago when he was on the team, or is that an optical illusion?
I think it's been the same. I think he's always been a real explosive player. I remember him coming out of college, and I remember him playing for Cal in Atlanta, and what a good job he did. I remember him with us a couple years ago, but he's also been out a little bit, so maybe there is some freshness, there's some spring in his legs. We always talk about it. When a guy's been out a few weekends, come back to practice, it's fresh legs. He looks different than everybody else when he gets back out there again because he hasn't had the wear and tear of everyday practice.
Jeff Wilson is one of your favorite players and your son's favorite player. I'm sure there's a lot of different things that go into that. But what are some qualities about him that makes you say that?
Oh, what Jeff is that, Jeff comes here with a smile on his face every day. He works as hard as anybody. He's pleasant to be around. He's always trying to get better. He's tough as nails. It's hard to get him out of a game. He's diligent. He's a very professional player as far as his preparation. I could keep going. He runs hard. He finishes. He's a good teammate. He's a great person to coach. Jeff's the consummate pro. He comes here every day, and what I love about him too is that, I get grumpy. And Jeff doesn't. He comes to work every day with a smile on his face, ready to work, and he's a pleasure to be around. And I'm really happy that when he's gotten his opportunities, he's been able to have some success.
How would you just kind of describe the overall offensive mood right now after getting a nice game like that in Carolina as compared to where you were maybe 2-3 weeks ago?
It's nice to have the production, obviously. So like I said, it's always nice to walk in after a win and talk about your production. But in the same sense, it's still about how we're doing. You still are going to evaluate every step you take and all the little things that we could be doing better. And we're still not there. Like we talked about even early in the season when there wasn't the production, there was a lot of good things going on, but yet we just weren't getting the production. Right now, I'm not saying it's the opposite now, but it is. You just don't know. All of a sudden, you break one run and you make one big play on a throw, and next thing you know, you're scoring a bunch of points, but yet you've still got a lot to work on. So I think the overall mood is one that it's nice to win. It's nice to be a little more productive, but at the same time, I think everybody knows there's a lot of work still to do.
How do you think Jalen Moore did last week?
I think Jalen bounced back and had a really nice game after. He came in at the end of the Denver game and really struggled, and then the next week came in and played better and this week was a really good game for him. He handled. He was up to the challenge. He gave up a sack. He was laid off the count. That's not to say he didn't give it up. He gave it up. You got to get off on the snap count. But he got off late on the count, and 53 got the edge on him and got the sack. But Jalen performed better. He rose up. He was disappointed in himself how he ended that Denver game, and he really came back and has performed.
Was mistakes? Debo talked about mistakes that you guys made in Carolina. A couple of other people did too. Was that a theme after the game that the score indicates that we blew this team out, but there's improvements that we could have made in that game?
Well, I think that everybody's really to a point now where what are we, 5 games in right now, that you would expect these things to not be as many, and there were more probably than anybody would have wanted or expected. And I think that's probably why you think we should be hitting our stride and starting to feel good. And even though maybe it feels like we're improving, and I'm sure we are incrementally, I think guys still look at it and say there's still so much work to be done. And each player, Debo could have been talking about, I don't know, you'd have to ask him about himself, about the receiver room, I don't know. But I think overall in general, there's always work to be done, and we are a team that needs to develop and keep working to get better throughout this season.
Is Jimmy Garoppolo one of the guys that speaks up and points that out, or is that strictly coaches?
It's coaches. We're not a big. There's not a lot of players that call other players on our offense. I don't think. Maybe on defense it's different. I've been on teams I've been on a team where Peyton Manning was the quarterback. He called out everybody, including the owner and the general manager. So it's we all got called out. I got a great story on that. It's not for now, but about Peyton, But yeah, so there have been a lot of teams like that. Chris Carter with the Minnesota Vikings. I can go, the list goes on of players that are really hard on other players. And our team's much more coach-driven. Kyle and the coaches and everybody really pointing out what needs to be worked on and improved upon. And then, within our groups, we stay on each other, I think, and guys are pretty good that way. But it's mostly coach-driven.
Just his experience in the offense, it was easy for him to kind of jump in.
Yeah, Tev's awesome. We talked about it, I think, last week or the week before. We just talked about his explosiveness on the field and when these guys were going to get their opportunities, and Tev went out there and really did a great job. And it's just so nice for him. To get 2 touchdowns, it's awesome for a guy that is on the practice squad, was not working anywhere, and now he's here and scores twice for us. It was really cool.
How's JP Mason progressing?
He's doing a good job. just keeps grinding away. And, you know, when he's ready, he's going to be ready. He's still a young player that's developing. And when there's a guy like Tev with experience in the offense, and Jeff Wilson as well, it is definitely a challenge for him. But he does a great job. I said every week he works hard, and when his op comes, we'll probably be surprised how well he does.
Kyle was saying that Ayuk was after probably popping pass catching numbers, but he said he was cutting his butt off. And he's talked in the past about his blocking. And I don't know, is he, like, from a year ago, is his technique better, or is that just a matter of desire and being a more willing blocker?
He was. There were times last year that they got cranked up, and I mean, when you talk about our Rams game that we played in Levi Stadium, I mean, they got after it. The Minnesota. I mean, there's some games that stick out where they competed every single snap. They've never not blocked. That's one thing about Kyle's offense that always goes back to his dad, and the receivers are going to block. If you're going to play in this offense, you're going to block, and so Brandon and Debo and all those guys have embraced it. Juwan, I mean, holy cow. Those guys really enjoy blocking. Obviously, like any receiver, they want to get their catches and they want to do those things, and then it's a give and take with them. But these guys are more than willing to do an excellent job, whatever we ask them to do. And BA's done that his whole career. It's like anything else, the consistency of it and all that, it's maybe being noticed a little bit more now because it's probably more consistent. Like all of his game is more consistent right now.
Two more? Anybody? All right, thanks, Coach.
All right, thanks, guys.